Alright, so here we got the A&K M16. This is my third gun. This is also one of my most problematic guns. Now, A&K does a really nice external job on all their parts. As you can see, looks pretty nice. Not really anything wrong with that, but I blew up the gearbox. I had to replace that. Having problems with it feeding now. Now what I'm thinking is, it shoots extremely fast, man. This is a really fast gun. I have it set to 5-round burst. I have a gate aster in it. I got it to compare it to the Perun hybrids. Honestly, I would just go with the Perun hybrid. It's a lot better. The sensor on the trigger sometimes goes in and out depending on what's going on with it, you know what I mean. I also had to tape up every port on the gearbox, which I'll show you guys when I take it apart. And you don't have to do that with the Perun. Just slips right in, plug it right in. Oh, another thing is, you did have to modify the gearbox for the gate aster to go in, which, if you're not really into it or don't want to mess with it, isn't a good buy for you, you know. But we're having feeding issues on this. I'm going to take it apart. I have a feeling it's my gearbox alignment. I feel like it's tipped up a little bit at the top. So we're going to try to fix that, see what happens. I did replace the rubber. Original rubber was hard. A&K rubbers aren't very good. Yeah. So I am looking at it now. Not really seeing too much of a misalignment in that gearbox. It looks pretty straight across. We're looking at these two lines here. I mean, it looks really straight across. I'm starting to think that maybe my nozzle is just too short for this build. I don't know exactly if it's the original one or if I replaced it, but I do have a slightly longer one I could put in there. But just to give you guys an example of how fast this is a 3-cell 11-volt 1200 milliamp focus. Boom. I'm gonna plug it into here real quick. Alrighty. So it starts up, the 3-cell plugged in. Just to show you the speed of this. This is going to be single. And you got full auto, or which is 5-round burst. So it's a fast boy. So on further review of this gun, I did take out a tape measure, and this and this right here should be the same width all the way across. So what I did was I measured from this line to the body of the gun, to the lower receiver, and then there I noticed that it is off, and you can actually see it right there now. Perfect. You know what I mean? And it is off. So what I'm going to try to do is right here where the front of the gearbox is, it is touching the body of the gun. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to etch that away. Now what I don't want it to do is interfere with the mag well, but this mag well has so much play in it, so I doubt it's going to interfere with that at all. Let's see here. One of these mags. You put it in and like, look at that. Look at that amount of play it has, you know. So it's really rough. You just fix that up. Of course, if you had the hop up in there, it would hold a little bit more. But drop it down, bring it down, do its thing, you know, see what happens. Put it back together before I tear apart the gearbox and have to replace the nozzle and all that. Because it looked like where the nozzle was, it was seating. See the little ring? It looks like it's seating fine, but the top is rubbed a little bit. So that tells me that it is tipped and not going into our hop-up unit straightly, which is a metal hop-up. So not really too much of an issue because I have a plastic nozzle, but you can see in there it is rubbed a little bit. And it's not going to kill it because it's not metal on metal, but get that going right. And we're going to straighten that out. We're just going to trim a little bit off. We are going to have to remove the gearbox, but we're not going to take the gearbox apart per se. And I'm thinking I'm going to redo my tape while we're at it, just so I can show you if you ever do happen to run into a problem with your trigger or anything not working on your gate aster. This is probably what's wrong with it. It gets light interference, so any kind of light, even this light right here, because they are just sensors. So anything that's open on the gearbox that will expose it to light will cause it to fail, cause it to read error codes or not pick up your sensors or stuff like that, which is why the Perun is a little bit better. I ain't gonna lie, man, that's a nice one. So we're gonna get started on that. Okay, so I've got the gearbox out of the shell. Now there is like a little edge right there that maybe I can just take that off so I don't have to cut into the gearbox or into the shell as much. But if we take that edge off, see how that works. There's the gearbox. Now you don't want to trim on the gearbox on the bottom side or on the front anywhere. Any point that you are going to trim is going to weaken it and could break, and you don't want to mess with the gearbox like that. There's another thing you can do is shim it up from this side. So you put some, either some O-ring or some washers on here so it shims it up, and that basically shims it up from your pistol grip. You can even glue them in place if you wanted to. But on this one here, I've seen the old gearbox. The old gearbox was slimmer in the front, and the pins won't line up if you do that. So there's that big pin right there, and then there's a little pin, and that won't line up. So we drop this down. This has plenty of wiggle room for the mag catch, and that's where the mag catch would slip through, right there. So we're gonna try just shaving those off a little bit, seeing where that lines up the gearbox, maybe putting the pistol grip back on. That's going to be the thing that secures it the most. If I do need to trim it, we'll just cut those parts off right about here. I'll just cut that straight. But I'm thinking that we're just going to be trimming that little bit off, and that should be enough. So, as you can see, trim that away. Now we are free floating in the air, just by that little bit. And we are straight across. Blam. So, I'm going to try to put this pistol grip on it. See what happens. Alright, so as I put the pistol grip on, it did want to cant it a little bit. So now what our issue is right here where the grip meets the back. You see how there's a notch right there. That was a little wider. This side looks a little bit better. You see how there's space right there. Back here inside where the body meets the grip, I'm going to try to add a little bit more space. Get a little bit more movement in this gearbox, because The front is free, and it can move forward. And see how the pin's slightly not aligned? And that's what we're going to try to do, is align that. After we do that, the screw for the stock goes through here. I don't know if you can see this screw hole, but we're going to try to add a little bit of shimming there, probably with some tape, maybe some heat shrink. We'll try to shim that out so when I tighten on the stock, it doesn't pull it back either. And that should line it up. We're going to take it back out and do that. Take those screws out of the thing, out of the grip here, and see how it goes. So I got the gearbox back out. So as you can see, I have shaved this before, but we're going to take a little bit more off of right here specifically. It gives it that canter, the block. That seems like it's taken out enough. If anything, we'll take down that little ridge right here. That way it can kick up. Then we're going to get some tape and put it right there on that hole. And that's going to be where the screw comes through for the stock. So basically that part there meets up with the back of the gearbox, like so. So as you can see, it's rubbed even. Has some rub marks. So we tighten it up, and you can see, look, it's only part of it is rubbed. So we get some tape on that, make it so it stays still, doesn't move. And then etch this out a little bit more. So we shaved it down a little bit more. Got this going. Got the gearbox back in for now. We're going to see how much we get play-wise when we put this on. Now, a good thing to do, 1 second, is to check before you're going to screw it in. I mean, screwing it in tight is going to get you the exact fit, but you can always measure. You don't want to take off too much. You can always take off more, but you can't add any on, of course. So check it out, and as you can see, there is gap between there. So we got some gap, got some movement, so we can screw it tight and see where it does, see how much play we get, see if we can get this box straight across. Which, as you can see right now, I'm pushing on the back, it's cantered. But let's give it a try. Alright, so I got the pistol grip screwed onto this. And it's going to be kind of hard to do with just the one hand. But there is, I don't know if you can see that, just enough wiggle. So just enough wiggle. We don't want to do too much. We don't want the gearbox loose in there now. But it's just enough. And we're talking millimeters of movement. See how straight it is across? That is now. Right across straight. So we're going to screw it up the rest of the way. Or I'm going to unscrew it. And we're going to shim out that back so it stays like this. Get that going. And I'll show you what that looks like when we do it. So I don't know if you can see it in there, but it was basically just electrical tape layered up. So that was the end of it. Of course, I cut that off. But I'm going to test fit this and see how much movement we are getting. You just put it over that. I haven't put the hole in it yet. You still need to put a hole in it so the screw comes through. But in case we need to add more, we can do that. 1 second. Put this gearbox in. And get me a tripod. Our next investment for this workbench. gearboxes in. That's too much. That's not enough. That's not enough. So if we were to put our pin in, this pin right here, this is the main gearbox pin. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, 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 oh. Make sure it goes all the way through. Okay. So as you can see, the slightest wiggle still. So we're going to add a couple more layers. I think that'll do it. So take the gearbox out, add a couple more layers. Alright, so we add a couple more layers and put our hole. I just used a drill and kind of heated it up, mashed the sides down. That way the screw can fit through pretty easy. There's a little bit of space between it and the screw itself on the gearbox. So I feel like it should slip right through. Screw into there very easy. But now we're going to put the gearbox in. I'll show you what it did and the wiggle this. If you put too much, the back pin is not going to line up. So that is the one thing. It won't line up. You won't be able to put it through. Tight is better than not fitting though. So we're going to want to put this back together. Show you how much wiggle we got. Show you how straight the gearbox is afterwards. And get it going. So gearbox is back in. As you can see, we are straight across. We got this going. We have no wiggle. See that? No wiggle whatsoever. Gearbox should be aligned now. Get rid of that rubbing on the tip. You see that? We can turn this. That way we can check it out, see if it's rubbing. But should be good. I'm going to take the gearbox out, show you the vital spots to tape up for this gate aster, because even just uncovering them, it started firing a bunch of codes. So I'll show you how to tape this up and get you going. Alright, so for this gate aster, these back ports here don't really matter, because your gate aster, any MOSFET, sits up in this general region here. So as you see on the back, you can see it back there underneath the selector plate. So what we're going to do is we're going to tape up any ports that are going to allow light into the system, which then causes the gate aster to just simply fail, or double shoot when you're on single, or the selector isn't working, or trigger isn't picking up, or different things like that. It's kind of a drag, but you live with it since you paid for it. I guess. But this one right here is going to be your back pin, of course. And we got this one here, which is going to be your front pin. Alright, so those two don't need to be covered. This here is for a selector, ambidextrous selector. As you can see, that one is covered. Let's check the back, and it is covered on the back as well. So you don't need that. I don't have an ambidextrous selector. It is just a regular selector switch. So that's what that is for there. So an MP5 would use that hole. A Masada would use that. I've had a Masada on this bench. That's Jake's gun, Shaky Jakey. He has a Masada. So that's what that hole would be used for. It doesn't work on an M4 necessarily. I haven't seen it. M4 selector, multi, or ambidextrous would probably use this. I'm guessing it's probably a pain in the ass, because they usually have gears, shit like that, that make it a problem child. Let's say it's not hard, but it's a pain in the ass. It takes a while. It takes a while to get the gearbox set in there just right, because you have to get the gears just right. Otherwise, the selectors are off, and just a pain in the ass. But MP5s just slip right through. So slips right through that hole. There's a hole right there, about as big as the pinhole, but it goes right there, and the MP5 will just slip right through each side. So, but on this, we are covering that front hole. Focus. So that front hole there, the little square. All right. This hole here is going to be your selector. You can cover that. So that's basically your safety. So when this is all the way forward, that's what that pins through. And then it stops your trigger from compressing compared when it's not. You got full swing of the trigger. So that is your safety arm. You're going to want to tape that. And you're going to tape this one here down by your spur gear. That gets taped. That hole right there. Trigger is going to be the one where you see where your errors are coming from. But all your sensors are going to be lined up in this general region here. So anything that's going to happen sensor wise is going to be in this general region, and of course you got the selector one on the back, but your trigger sensor is here on this, and it just kind of makes it a pain in the ass because you got to put like a white sticker on this side of the gearbox because your sensors are on this side of the gearbox. It's a flat MOSFET, and so every time you pull the trigger, it senses that it's moving in there. So any amount of light is going to throw it off. It's going to make it so you cannot sense this trigger moving. So you got to tape these up. What I usually do is just get strips of tape like this, cut it in half, however big you want. I like half. Half will tape it together. If you're trying to take it apart, you're going to have to take it off anyway. So, but yeah, these back ones you don't need to worry about. I am a little iffy on if this one here on the top, where this goes, is going to be an issue. But we'll check that out. I don't ever think it's an issue, but I haven't had any error codes, but just by taping the few holes that I did mention. Alright, so we got some tape on these holes. Everywhere light can get through. I did forget to mention, this gearbox does have a, I forget what it's called, a reversal latch inspection hole. Yes, reversal latch inspection hole. So, it does have that. I did throw a piece of tape on that, just in case. Cover up the spur gear inspection hole. You got the safety, of course. You got safety lever, that is. And then you got the, which would be basically for the mechanical triggers. So this is a MOSFET in it. It's not a mechanical trigger. It's a sensor trigger. Perun uses a magnet. This one uses just a straight sensor. This one here would be, some of them have micro switches. So this one here would be for inspecting the connections on a manual trigger. So basically anything without a MOSFET. So it's a direct connection. You can see parts moving in there. You can see everything in there. And it also helps with the shimming. So any of the ports that you see help you with shimming your gun. Which this gun has the bearings and stuff. It's pretty nice on the shimming side of things. And we're just going to put it back in the gun and see what it's like. See what happens. Probably check out the aster link, which is another issue with getting the gate aster, is you need to pay for the link as well. So that's another 20 bucks. So actually you are saving money by going with the Perun. I like it. It seems to work a lot better with the aster, don't get me wrong. But I just feel like I've never had a Titan. I bet the Titans are really nice. They're super expensive. But the Gate Aster just kind of seems like, there's not really too much to it. You know what I mean? It's not fancy at all to me. Alright, so now I got it back together. Before I put the barrel and the stock on, I want to give it just a test run. See how it's working. See if it is working. So, jostle things around, move things, you know what I mean? You got to check it out again. So, I plug it in. Again, 3-cell, 1200 milliamp. Goes. Oh yeah. He's a fast boy. Okay, so one of the biggest things that this does to your gun when your gearbox is misaligned is going to be the fact that it fucks up your FPS. Your FPS is all over the place. You're getting shotgun-like sprays, misfeeds. Basically, the rubber folds in on itself. But we do have the gun back together. And we are going to give it some test shots just to see what we are doing with. So, set this up in fashion so you can see what the hell I'm doing. If it works. So, it's 0.2 grams. We got like 360, 361. This will dramatically increase your FPS. I believe before when I tested it, it was shooting at like a 300, 290, something like that. It was all messed up. It was all messed up. We're shooting pretty good though right now. So, shooting into that 361 plus, let's check this out. So instead of going with the full auto on this gun because it's so fast, I went with a 4-round or 5-round burst interruptible, but this should give us an idea of rounds per second, or rounds per minute. So 369, and we got 3,000 rounds per minute on this gun. So she's smacking. She's smacking pretty good. I do believe it is still over the limit on like CQB, that kind of thing, but it's working really nice. So M16 A&K. Of course, internals not so good. Externals though, it's not a bad gun. Works really nice. Has a nice barrel. I did break the bird cage. Went with the 3-prong. Not very arrow specific, but It works really nice. Red Carpet Airsoft signing out.